Hey, how you doing? This is Adam Post, publisher of more than 1,000 comic books and marketing expert covering woke comic books ruining comics and comic book stores as 25% of comic book stores plan to close down. Let's get into the story. Before we do, please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications. Give me a thumbs up. I really appreciate you guys. Coming from ICV2, Coliseum of Comics writes this article. Comic Stores 2023, it's nearly 2024 and I'm more than concerned. From Bleeding Cool, a mystery retailer talks about DC Comics, discounts, and carrying on. From Breitbart, rebooted queer Green Lantern comic flops hard as writer calls comics fans haters and queerphobes. From Bounding Into Comics, Marvel Comics retcons, which means redoes, Nightcrawler's origin reveals X-Men teleporter as biological son of lesbian mutants Mystique and Destiny. There's been a new trend in comic book publishing, which is to self-publish on crowdfunded websites. Of course, with crowdfunding like Indiegogo, Kickstarter, and now some publishers have their own websites where you can pre-order a comic directly from the creator. They put it together and then they print it up and send it out direct to the customer. That was really the original business of comic book stores. Comic book stores would place non-returnable pre-orders for comic books to distributors who would then collect the numbers, give them to the publishers, and then have a non-returnable order to a publisher. They would print the comics and send them to the distributor who would send them to the shops. That's still how the business works. But because there are ridiculous versions of comics coming out now, where classic heroes are being changed around for woke identity politics, comic book stores can't sell these comics. Because if you're a fan of Green Lantern, this may not be your preferred sexual identity. And absolutely it's true that Stan Lee, Stan the Man, was interested in and did create characters that dealt with progressive stories and progressive ideas. He would never take a main character like Green Lantern from DC and all of a sudden make him gay or make Spider-Man bisexual or gay. He wouldn't do something like that. We know he wouldn't do it because he never did it. He created Black Panther. They dealt with progressive stories and ideas, but they didn't reboot and take away the characters from customers and change them into something else for politics. Stan Lee would have never done it. Anyone who understands storytelling would never do it. Anyone who respected their customers would never do it. But that's what Marvel and DC have been doing to great negative effect on sales. This article from Coliseum of Comics is from Phil Boyle, whose Coliseum of Comics Chain is the largest comics and games retailer in the Southeast, and he shared his concerns and suggested solutions for comic book stores at a time of declining sales. Here's what he has to say. It's nearly 2024 and I'm more than concerned. Marvel and DC, you blew it. Or maybe you just succeeded in your plan to kill off an American art form of which you've been the able stewards of for 80 years. It's baffling that something so prolific was ushered to the chopping block and executed. Strong accusation? No, just the unvarnished truth as new comic sales find new lows. Worse, you've gutted an army of passionate retailers who've worked in this business for decades to close to poverty wages in many cases. To put such a system of advocates in every state and major city in America and around much of the world would cost a fortune. But it happened organically to your benefit, and in gratitude, you've stripped mine what little profit there was in favor of short-term goals and chasing corporate bonuses. We, the retailers, cultivated the fan base the same way the underappreciated creators created the precious intellectual properties that have made the parent companies obscene amounts of money. It was a biosystem of fans feeding off the Wednesday excitement of new comics releases, eager to spend money on not only the comics that drew them in, but the t-shirts, lunchboxes, and mouse pads with Spider-Man or Batman on them. Fans, retailers, and creators have all suffered under the recent corporate mandates. Where did it go off the rails? It's not such a conundrum to anyone with 2 active brain cells and a list of back issues they need to complete their runs. Comics, first and foremost, have always been entertainment. Sure, collectible entertainment, which justifies the cost to entertainment ratio. But along the way, the immediate sale and false bolstering of numbers through variant covers, convoluted events, and incessant reboots left the considerations of the fans behind. Character swapping, gender bending, and changing sexual orientation of beloved characters fell flat with the Wednesday Warriors, who supported the industry for decades. Wednesday Warriors is his reference to regular comic book buyers, people that would go in and spend $50, $100, even sometimes $300 a week or more buying whatever the new comics were on Wednesday that they liked. And they bought sometimes everything from Marvel, everything from DC, a lot of independent comics. The regular, consistent customers that really considered buying comic books as part of a lifestyle. The crowd of new readers the changes in classic characters were meant to attract didn't translate to a one-for-one swap, leaving a declining customer base. Because even if you're going to buy Green Lantern because you're gay and you want to see a superhero kiss another guy, okay, there's no problem with that. But that same person is not going to say, okay, well, I need to buy other comics too. I need to spend $200, $300 a week on all these new comics to satisfy this idea of representation they keep trying to push. To make things more difficult on the retail side, in a very deliberate abuse of both the FOC system and retailers' goodwill toward publishers, we constantly have to FOC an issue 2 issues out rather than next issue, which makes ordering a guess. Throw in 4 covers on number 5 and then 6 on number 6. One of which is by Artgerm, a great artist, and another by Scotty Young. And then number 7 has 5 covers with neither cover artist, and number 8 has a celebrity appearance cover, and it's a constant and very deliberate shell game forcing retailers to guess on nearly every issue. Because retailers are buying these on a non-returnable basis, they're trying to figure out what their regular customers are going to want to buy. But there's really no way for retailers to absolutely know, so they usually do either sell out and could have sold more copies, or unfortunately even more often get stuck with unsold copies. How do we fix this, assuming we can pull the canoe back over the waterfall at this point? And here's where he gets into some of the ideas about solutions. A friend of mine recently moved into a condo and took up an advisory position on the board. The pool was in need of repair, the roofs needed replacing, and the facades and landscaping had seen better days. There was no money to make the repairs, and the only solution was to add $150 per month to everyone's condo fees to pay for the repairs. The meeting that followed the announcement was less than friendly as people complained about the extra costs. My buddy explained that everyone had been living off the equity in the condos and put no money into the condos, thereby devaluating them. And here we are in the comic book industry facing the same conundrum. Marvel and DC have strip mined the comic industry for the better part of a decade, putting no money into the market that sustained them for years. Much like the condo association, an investment is needed by those who lived off the equity for years. If you still want to have comic book stores alive in 2 years, 2 years tops, the time to invest is now. What we need to revitalize this market. Number 1, $3.99 comics. I would say $2.99, but we have increased rents, labor, and insurance costs to cover, so $3.99. $4.99 and more is a non-starter with too many fans. 2, fewer covers. I know this will get some pushback from every corner, but without a focus, it's all about the value of the covers and not what's between them. Maximum of 2 covers per comic book published. While you're at it, give us a hook to sell, not just another convention commission piece with no indication of what's inside the comic that it covers. Number 3, editors who are editors. Too many stories are lackluster and agenda-driven. Too many covers are con-sketch drivel with no sales point, and too much interior art is amateurish. It's clear neither Marvel or DC has a publishing plan beyond the current reboot. 4, the characters are iconic for a reason. The movies never got traction until they leaned into what made the characters decades-long successes. Change is good for story, but inevitably, you need to touch base with what brought them. Gender swaps, sexual orientation changes, and outright changes to who's in the suit are short-term headline grabbers, but without long-term sales, with very few exceptions. 5, tell stories without proselytizing. I've beat this drum for a decade and more, but here we are, chasing away a large portion of our customer base with every new tale as they want entertainment, not a serialized sermon. Here's what he means about a sermon. This is one comic panel. Respectively, sir, you were a cis white male until cosmic rays turned you into the Thing. Your societal estrangement, while distressing, I'm sure, was relatively short-lived. These days, you're a world-famous superhero. You've had dalliances with models and starlets. You're currently wedded to a 2-time National Medal of the Arts winner. I was born like this and abandoned in a dumpster as an infant. I lived in the wild like an animal until I was 10. False equivalencies help no one, sir. Thank you. That's what he means by a sermon. Who wants to read that? And who wants to pay to read that? Number 6, limited new characters. Fresh blood is good, but it's become obvious that characters aren't organic to stories. They're shoehorned in for a bump in sales. Dance with who brung you, as the saying goes. For number 7, he says he'd ask for a minimum advertised price, meaning that comics should not be overly heavily discounted, but he understands it's not practical in the market. So just like when you go to Amazon or Walmart and things are discounted 30% off, 40% off, Amazon has had disputes with publishers before because they so heavily discount new releases sometimes, especially pre-orders. Unfortunately, that's just the nature of the business. It didn't used to be that bad, but there was pretty significant discounting even all the way back in the 1980s when the direct comics market really took off and there were a lot of comic book stores. Number 8, here's the big one, discount and shipping. Marvel and DC screwed this market, so if you continue to have people dumb enough to labor 60 hours a week for poverty wages and sell and advocate for your precious intellectual properties, you need to invest in that market. He's talking about comic book store owners that work at least 60 hours a week and really don't make good money operating comic book stores. People do it because they love it. You strip mine, that word again, because it applies so precisely, all the cash out of the direct market, and retailers are bleeding from the bone. We need your investment or this market goes away. No, you cannot just sell online, as the minimum production costs won't be met with online only. Investment means putting books on stands at a cost to you, not the people with the highest cost per issue. Here's his plan. Set a minimum for each title by store. Every issue over that minimum is sold to brick and mortar retailers for 60 cents. This puts books on stands, minimizes cost to retailers, and helps print runs. Why should you listen to any of this? Because your livelihood is tethered to the retail community. Rome is on fire. Fiddle or get on the phone with some of your key retail partners and find out what it's like out here, but be prepared for some ugly stories. Without some immediate action, I see 25% of the retail stores closing at the end of the first quarter 2024. And that's by the end of March 2024, not far away. From Bleeding Cool, they have an interesting article from someone who is a retailer, and what they propose is different. But basically, their argument against what the problem is with the industry is to say, oh no, it doesn't matter. You can have all the gay, woke, progressive changes to mainstream characters that you want. What you really need to do is just get rid of the discounters like Amazon, and there are a couple of mail order companies that do massive discounting. What's interesting is they don't talk at all about digital. Comics are also available digitally, like the New Week's comics. As bootlegs, you can also buy them, but digital has affected comic book stores as well. The main problem is woke representation in comic books does not sell comic books, particularly when you mix it with established characters. What it does do is alienate those weekly regular customers, the weekly Wednesday warriors who spend hundreds of dollars a week on new comic books usually, and convince them that comic books are no longer for them. Let me know what you think of all this in the comments below. Always love to see your ideas. Please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications, give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you again soon with another video. And if I don't see you, I will miss you.